But I would also argue that so does Sting. He was the franchise player for WCW when the WWF was trying to transition from Hulk Hogan to the Ultimate Warrior to be their star of the 90s. The NWA was doing the exact same thing. I guess it was WCW by then, but they were transitioning from their star of the 80s, Ric Flair, to another crazy haired, neon colored babyface, Sting. He became a true icon of WCW, the surfer Sting that we all love so much, and now the incredible Crow Sting. What a fantastic run that started in 96. And even all these years later in 2024, when he finally retires, he retires as Crow Sting, a creation from WCW. It really is remarkable because Sting is one of those guys who never left. He was in WCW from day one, never lured away for a better contract or more money or a different deal. From the day they opened the doors until they turned the lights out, Sting was there. And even when the WWE had the book on that very last Nitro, they knew what to do. Let's let Sting and Ric Flair hook it up one more time, just like they did on the very first Nitro. Let's let them close it on the last Nitro. I don't think it can be debated, man. If it's a WCW Hall of Fame, Sting's got to be in, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. It again, it's kind of like the Ric Flair. There's really not a discussion to be had here. You know, there's a lot to talk about, a lot that he achieved, and again, you know, the the butterfly effect. What would happen if? You know, what would happen, for example, if Sting, instead of the Ultimate Warrior and his gimmick, I mean, let's face it, they both had basically the same gimmicks. They came up together, they learned the business together. They were a tag team together. They're basically the same gimmick. One ended up in WWE. His name was Ultimate Warrior. The other one ended up in WCW. He was Sting. And if Vince McMahon were able to do it all over again and go back in time, he would have been on this WCW version of that character, not on the Ultimate Warrior version, if he were able to see into the future. Because while one looked more impressive physically, I guess, depending on what your tastes were, one was actually able to work.
Yes.
And excite the crowds and get the crowds behind him and learn the industry and knew how to sell. Yeah. Sting was the better version of that idea. And he was WCW's version. And without Sting, who knows what would have happened? I don't even know that there's a what if there were no Sting story to be told, really. But there are so many great moments as a result of Sting that it doesn't freaking matter. Sting Vader, to me, is still some of the best stuff I've ever seen. It really had me on the edge of my seat. I was an executive sitting there looking with my jaw hanging open. There was some great stuff. At the peak of Steve Morton's career as Sting, a lot of it early in WCW. His best work, his most memorable work, his most critically acclaimed work will come much later in his career, right? I think Crow Sting is the Sting. When you see Sting making appearances and at conventions, he doesn't draw. He's Crow Sting.
Yes.
Much like Kevin Nash shows up in his NWO shirt, as does Sean Waltman, right? Because that's really what people know them for. Yes, they did other stuff. Yes, they achieved other great successes. But what they're really known for, in the case of Sean Waltman and the late Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, certainly, because I know when I see him out on the road, they're wearing NWO merchandise. Sting was a better version of that character. And so much good stuff. Yes, Sting.
Certainly belongs. And Jab Blower over on YouTube, he agreed. He says, I feel like Sting should be the first inductee. He's the embodiment of WCW, was the franchise player for its entire existence and never left. Others like Ric Flair and Hollywood Hogan and DDP should be inducted, but Sting needs to be first. Let's talk about who I think a lot of our folks over on 83weeks.com on the community page think should be first. And that's a group known as the New World Order, the NWO. How do you tell the story of WCW without talking about the NWO and the incredible streak they went on? 83 weeks, I think it was. Everything changed in professional wrestling when Scott Hall came down the stands there in the middle of nothing happened in Georgia to let everybody know that a war was on. A week later, Kevin Nash is going to join him Wouldn't be too long before you're flying through the air on a pay-per-view set, crashing through a table. And before we knew it, Hulk Hogan was dropping the leg to turn heel at Bash at the Beach. And that was real wrestling history. Like real wrestling history, not hyperbole, not hype. It changed everything. And we believe that so strongly. It's even a painting in your studio hanging behind your head. Like, and you mentioned when these guys are running around making appearances, they're wearing the NWO stuff. Yes, they could wear DX stuff or Diesel stuff or what. Yeah, but everybody loves the NWO. I mean, the Too Sweet, the hand symbol, the for life. I mean, it's a part of pop culture to this day. And I can't tell you how many people are going to buy a big gold belt this year from the WWE and they're going to spray paint it because that's what the NWO was all about. Man, if you're going to put a group in, all due respect to the Horsemen, that was a JCP creation. If it's truly a WCW Hall of Fame, man, the NWO as a group, that's got to be the first group in no matter what, right?
Oh, yes, no question about it. And again, forget about my association with it and all that. Just measure impact. Take out your fucking wrestling Richter scale and you go, okay, what's had the biggest impact? Name me another faction in history that's had a bigger, longer, more sustained impact on the business. I'll wait. And I'll wait a long time because that's how long it'll take. It'll take a long time. And look at all the incarnations. Look at everybody. I'm not saying trying to recreate because that sounds petty, but look at what we created and look at people who continue to this day in all organizations trying to replicate that business model. It's a compliment. It's a deserved compliment. Not to me, to that collaborative effort that we recognize as the NWO.
Dork Suck 2015 over on YouTube agreed with you, said the NWO, because they're one of the many reasons WCW conquered the Monday night ratings war for 83 weeks. Their dominance was felt not only throughout the entire locker room, but the wrestling industry. I mean, we would actually see Shawn Michaels come into the ring at WrestleMania 13 to do commentary, opening his jacket to where Vince couldn't see and throwing up the little hand sign to his buddies down in WCW. He did that at WrestleMania. It was a big deal. Such a big deal that the WWE, who had almost no interest in any of the gimmicks or presentations you saw in WCW, even they brought out their own version of the NWO. The importance of the NWO just can't be overstated. And I know that people are tired of hearing about it, but if there was a WCW Hall of Fame, the NWO has got to be in. And